Developing balance in your horse actually has two parts to it, because there is balance from side to side, from left to right, and there's also balance from front to back, okay, or back to front. So those are the two types of balance which you need to be developing with your horse. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing some helpful techniques which you can use in your training with your horse to help them build their balance. Today's discussion is actually a small piece of the full entire discussion. I actually spoke at length with a speaker in our upcoming virtual clinic. So if you haven't already checked out that virtual clinic, it's completely free for you to register. And I would highly recommend that you jump over and you listen to the entire discussion, because there's a lot of moving parts obviously involved. So I'm going to dive into as much as I can in today's video. But if you want like the full in-depth version, then go and check out that virtual clinic. Again, it's totally free, and the link is going to be down below. Contrary to a lot of people's belief, is that balance from left to right, okay, also known as straightness, is actually a lot higher up on the training scale or the training tree, whatever you want to call it, than most people realize. So a lot of people, they think like, oh, horses in the wild, they only go in a straight line. Well, straightness means evenness from the left side to the right side, and most horses, just like people, are either right or left-handed. So straightness is actually not very common in horses, even in the wild. So as riders, in order to train our horses to have equal balance on both right and left is actually, like I said, it's further up in the training scale than a lot of people realize. So straightness comes later. So trying to develop your horse's left to right balance before you have back to front balance is going to be very tricky. So actually, when we're discussing balance in horses, you need to focus on back to front balance first, way before you are thinking about straightness in their body. And by straightness, again, I mean evenness from right to left. You can have straightness on a circle, you can have straightness on a serpentine, okay? It just means that they perform and they use their body equally, and that their legs are tracking equally, and that they have evenness. So obviously on a straight line, if you were doing a dressage test, for example, down the center line, then it would be very obvious if your horse can go straight or not, which is partially why that is part of the dressage tests. But again, you need back to front balance before you can even think about left to right or side to side balance. So as riders, it is our job to make our horses ambidextrous, okay? They need to be equal on both sides. If you've ever ridden a green horse or a young horse, you'll probably notice if you're riding in an arena or around corners or trying to make circles that the horses have a really hard time keeping upright. Okay, a lot of them will try and like motorcycle around the corners. They'll speed up and their legs start kind of flailing. And it's a really funny experience when you're riding green horses, because they have four legs, but it's almost like they don't know how to use them and they don't know exactly where their legs go. And that is exactly why we have to work on balance, starting with back to front balance. Now, in order to achieve balance in your horse, I have to say, you have to, as a rider, be balanced, okay? You cannot train your horse or expect your horse to be balanced if you are not balanced. Because, a lot of people, they don't realize, even looking down with your eyes to check your diagonal or which canter lead you're on, just by looking down, okay, that act of turning your head down, that puts between 10 to 40 pounds of weight on your horse's front legs. Extra. So imagine on a young horse or a green horse putting an extra 40 pounds of weight on their front legs as you're trying to go around a corner. Of course they're going to lose balance. So it is super critical as riders that we are balanced ourselves, and that should be your first and foremost priority, is developing yourself as a balanced rider. It doesn't matter if you're a show jumper or a dressage rider or you do Western, okay? There is a center of gravity in the horse, and our center of gravity needs to be aligned with their center of gravity in order for us to be balanced. That also means that we can't be like leaning our shoulders, we can't be motorcycling things as well, okay? We always need to be straight, looking where we're going, and again, have balance. The second thing which you need to be mindful about is this weird notion in the equestrian sports, which is, oh, my horse needs to be on the vertical, or oh, I need to collect my horse's head, or oh, my horse isn't on the bit, all of these different variations. And if your horse does not have balance, okay, from back to front, that means it's not sitting on its hindquarters, it's not sitting on its haunches, it has, if these are its hind legs, and this is its front leg, so that's a little bit more uphill. I mean, obviously this is very dramatic, but that horse is uphill. you know, the front legs are very light and free, that they can canter or jump or, you know, whatever it is. So that is kind of the front to back to front balance that we're looking for. And if you're trying to force your horse's head down into position, into on the vertical or on the bit or collected or whatever, okay, if you're trying to do that when the horse isn't even sitting on its hind haunches, it doesn't make any sense, okay? You're forcing the horse to put its head down, but actually it's not about the head. The head is not what makes a horse balanced, okay? Actually, the head is the last part of the training scale in the training tree. Until you have balance, until that horse can kind of sit behind and, you know, feel light in the front, you have no business and no right to be trying to pull the horse's head down. Now, there's a difference between a horse stretching and relaxing and rounding its back, because its back will automatically lift when it's stretching and it's round, okay? Its head could be all the way to the floor and you'll feel the back lift. So there's a difference between stretching the horse and forcing it into this kind of on the bit or on the vertical position, okay? So a horse will naturally, when it is more balanced and collected, its neck will naturally kind of round. So it's not something that you should have to force, okay? And again, that is something that develops with training and fitness over a period of time. So if your horse is not super fit, or it's a green horse or a young horse, you know, again, putting its head down does not mean that the horse is balanced. And actually, you are more likely to cause your horse damage, especially in training terms. You know, the horse is probably going to be very heavy, it's going to run into the ground, it's going to be pulling against your reins. A whole lot of bad habits are going to develop from this, and it's not the horse's fault, it's yours. So a true collected horse, it is not about the head. A head is kind of a result of actually being balanced. So it is not the head's job to collect the horse. That is the biggest thing that I want you to remember when developing the horse's balance and your balance. I also want to mention that it is very normal and very natural for your young horse or your schooling horse for its head to come up when you're starting to teach it to sit on its haunches. And the reason is because if the horse doesn't have the back muscles to support it, it is very normal. And again, it depends on the breed of the horse. You know, if it's a thoroughbred, is it ewe-necked? I have a little Arabian mare. She always had her head kind of like doing little silly Arabian things. So, you know, those types of horses might take longer. If you're on a Lusitano or an Andalusian, I mean, it might just put itself into this beautiful rounded neck frame because that's the build and the conformation of the horse. But otherwise, it is actually very normal and very natural for a horse, especially a young horse or a horse that doesn't have a lot of back muscles and fitness, for its head to come up, for it to kind of throw its weight a little bit back in order to get balance, especially if you're trying to do something like, for example, get a canter transition from walk. You know, I've seen horses, young horses, that they sit on their little bums, okay? They're sort of sitting and their head comes up and then boop, they go right into canter. And then as they relax into canter, their head will naturally start to kind of relax. But it's very normal, again, for young horses or, you know, unfit horses for their heads to come up. And I don't want you to obsess over their heads if they feel like, you know, they need it to balance themselves in that moment because they're lacking the fitness. Their heads will start to come with very little assistance on your part over time, the more that you do this and the more that you start to develop their fitness and their training. Balance does not come for free. It's going to take some patience and some hard work on your part, but it is so worth it in the end. After all, horses, they have to get used to carrying our weight on their backs. And, you know, for them to first, when they're young and they're trying to get their own balance, and then now you have this kind of rider on top of them. So again, it's very normal and very natural if it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, and a little bit of love. And by teaching them to be balanced and to carry our weight correctly on their hind legs, then they are going to feel a lot more free in the front, and you're just going to have a way more pleasant ride with your horse, and they're going to enjoy it so much more when they're fit and they're feeling good and they're able to carry the weight easily. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and also like this video. It actually really helps with the YouTube algorithm, and I am super excited. You know, please, I want you to do me a huge favor in the comments down below. Send me your questions, or, you know, if you have any topics or video ideas that you want me to discuss. I am super excited to hear from you, so that way I can go and I can make some more videos for you. That's it for this video, and happy trails.